Gents, and welcome back to Mr. Sandwich Reads at Home. I am Mr. Sandwich, and I am reading The King of Mulberry Street by Donna Jo Napoli. And this is it. This is the chapter I have been waiting for. This is chapter 14, Sandwiches. You gotta love it. I told you from the very beginning, this book had everything. It had a young Italian Jews immigration story, and it had sandwiches. So what else do you want? Historical fiction meets a lunchtime delicacy. This is great. This is on page 126. Let's jump into it. Let's do a quick rewind. So when we last left off, Dom accidentally ended up at Central Park. He was supposed to meet Gaetano. He told Gaetano, I'll give you my nice shoes if you can get me on the Bolivia boat. He comes forward and finally tells Gaetano, listen, I'm not from the Bronx. I'm trying to get back to Napoli. That's where I came from. If you can get me onto the Bolivia, the boat back to Napoli, I'll give you my nice shoes. And so Gaetano says, okay, meet me back here this evening. Well, Dom doesn't get there in time because he gets lost in Central Park. Now, in Central Park, he does get a free meal. A kind family, or the wife of a nice family, sort of gives him a pastry. He doesn't know if the white sauce in there is from flour or from dairy. If it's from dairy, he's breaking kosher law because in the kosher diet, you're not supposed to mix meat with cheese, and there was beef in it. But he eats, so he's had something to eat, and he kind of washes up in one of the, I believe it was a fountain or a pond there. Must have been a pond. There were geese in there. Not that they wouldn't be in a fountain, but they'd probably be in the pond. Okay, let's jump in. That's it. Let's find out here on page 126, chapter 14, Sandwiches. What's next for Dom? Prediction time. You might want to pause it here. Do you think he's going to get on the Bolivia? He missed the boat, so to speak, trying to catch up with Gaetano to get him back on the boat. Do you think that's the last opportunity for Dom to make it back home here? Something to think about. You could pause and discuss. Okay, hopefully you had a moment to pause and discuss, and here we go. Chapter 14, Sandwiches. On Monday, the alley came alive with loud bangs long before dawn. I leaped out of my barrel and ran to the next street before I dared to look back. It was street cleaners, lugging trash out to a wagon and shouting in English. They took away the dead dog, and with it the stench that meant no one would come near my barrel. Who cared anyway? I was leaving on the Bolivia soon, maybe that day. Girls who were almost young ladies walked along the block toward me, arm in arm. They wore black skirts down to their ankles and white aprons and blouses with black bows at their neck. They had on black boots. I flattened myself against the wall as they passed, talking of someone named Maria Luisa, who had the good fortune to be getting married. She wouldn't have to work anymore. Their voices were astoundingly loud. I looked around. No Gaetano. I might as well head for the wharf. I got there in record time, running so hard I had to bend to wheeze on the last corner. The Bolivia was gone. No! I ran into the nearest cafe. What happened to the ship? I asked. The man making coffee said something in English. Bolivia, I said, Bolivia. I pointed to the wharf. The man said something else in English, then went and served his customers. This wasn't possible. A policeman passed the window. I ran outside to him. Bolivia, I said. He looked down at me with fat, ruddy cheeks and said something in English. I pointed to where the ship had been. Bolivia. The policeman shooed me away. It couldn't have left. It must have just moved to another dock. Someone had to know. I looked around for the Italian bricklayers, but the sidewalk in front of the shop was perfect. They'd finished the job. Well, maybe they'd be back. Well, I'm going to turn off my dehumidifier here. Okay. I looked around for the Italian bricklayers, but the sidewalk in front of the shop was perfect. They'd finished the job. Well, maybe they'd be back. I leaned against the shop window and sank to my bottom, my knees pressed against my chest. The shopkeeper showed up to unlock. Bolivia? I said. He got out a broom and shook it at me. I ran along the waterfront. I ran and ran. But who was I kidding? If there was a ship docked anywhere along here, everyone could have seen it from far away. The Bolivia was gone. I kept running without thinking, back and forth along the wharf, back and forth, back and forth. Tears blurred my vision. Traffic had picked up. The day was really started. Another day here, in New York, in America, an ocean away from home. I stopped and leaned my forehead against a pole and waited for my eyes to clear. Then I walked back up the road. Who died? It was Tin Pan Alley standing on his corner, the tin cup at his feet, the triangle in his hand. The ship left, the Bolivia. I was supposed to go on it, but it left without me. That's bad. He tapped his triangle and whistled the tune about the bicycle built for two. I stood there, too sad to move. Tin Pan Alley reached in his pocket and took out a small brown rock. He threw it on the sidewalk. It split into shards. He scooped some back into his pocket and he put the rest in my hand. I looked at him. Rock candy, he said. An old Chinese man gave it to me. I looked at it. I can't take that. I bet you almost never get candy. How often do you get ice cream? You're not the only one who can share. Remember, he shared the ice cream with Tin Pan Alley. He tapped his triangle again. I have to work hard now. The early crowd is good on Monday. Come back in a couple of hours. Why? I said. You got something better to do? He whistled. I put my hands in my pocket and watched the people go by. The ship had left, without me. But another had to be coming soon. This was a delay. That was all. The job now was to get ready for the next ship. That was what Uncle Aurelio would have said. I sucked on the rock candy. The sweetness made my mouth water, and now all I wanted was real food. I went back to the produce vendor on Mulberry Street, who was polishing fruit with a towel and arranging it in piles. Tomatoes should go in front, I said. He turned around. So you're back. They'll catch the eye better. Red does that. Then the green zucchini should go at the back, and the onions can stay in the basket on the ground in front of the table. All they really need is for the ones on top to be brushed off a little. All right. You've convinced me. Go to work. But I need 3 oranges today. Oranges get trucked up from Florida in the south. They don't grow around here. It's not like the south of Italy. They cost. I'll work as long as it takes to earn them. I'm good at sweeping too. He threw his towel over his shoulder. Arrange the produce, then we'll talk. I worked for an hour. I put everything in its perfect place. Beautiful, the vendor said. What's your name, kid? Dom. I'm Grandinetti. Francisco Grandinetti. Can I trust you, Dom? Yes. Let's find out. Here's a penny. Go to the corner, pick me up an Italian paper. Do they speak Italian at the newsstand? Yes. I bought the newspaper. Then I ran back to Grandinetti's. He spread out the paper on the weighing counter inside and pointed. What can you make of that? The paper was full of drawings of people with words printed in little clouds over their heads. It's the comic section. The other was talking about money. It didn't make much sense to me. I glanced up at Grandinetti. Don't worry about the words, he said. You don't have to be able to read to get it. I can read, I said. He smiled like he didn't believe me. Most people lie and say they can read. That's why there's lots of illustrations. See? I got a customer. You look at the paper. Also, I don't know. Maybe that's not the comic section and there used to just be more pictures. I'm not sure. Something to research here. You look at the paper. I turned the page. These illustrations were of people working in factories. A man yelled at them and brandished a whip. The people were small and scrawny and dark-skinned. The boss was tall and fat and light-skinned. Grandinetti came back in and weighed carrots and lettuce and tomatoes and onions for a woman in a bright flowered dress. Her face was powdered so white she looked sick. She watched every move he made, as though afraid he'd cheat her. She left in a haze of strong perfume. She watched you weigh everything, I said. She's a widow, Grandinetti tisked. She's got it hard as anyone else. Most people would cheat her if they could. Not you? No, but you don't know me well enough to say that yet. Did you read the paper? I pointed. Are the workers Italian? Yes. And is the boss Irish? Grandinetti smiled. You've got it all figured out. At church yesterday, the Italians went into the basement while the Irish went upstairs. The church belonged to the Irish first. This used to be their neighborhood. Doesn't a church belong to whoever goes to it? I asked. Spoken like an Italian, my boy. Look, the Irish fill the offering basket with money. They pay for the church. The Italians have close to nothing to give, but even if they had it, they wouldn't pay the same way. To us, the priest is like a friend. We offer him produce or pie. We have him over to supper. So that's how it is. The Irish get the upstairs. And they get all the jobs. So why stay here? Why not get on the next ship back to Italy? Is that what your father says? Listen here, Dom. Lots of us had it rough at first. America's not perfect, God knows. In Calabria, I farmed, and after living an outdoor life like that, being in the city is like being in a cage. Sometimes I can hardly stand it. But in Italy, my family was also always struggling. Here, we're doing better. I tapped the illustration. That's because you're not working in a factory. In Italy, workers get paid whenever the bosses feel like it. Here, they get paid every week. In Italy, men have to work till the job's finished, no matter how long it takes. Here, they work till quitting time. It's better here. Your father will get used to it. An Irish boss who pays on time is better than an Italian boss who doesn't. He waved to someone out on the sidewalk. A customer. There's a bushel of new potatoes in the storeroom. Go through them and set the biggest ones on the floor. I had sorted the potatoes by the time Grandinetti finished with his customer. He put the small potatoes aside and wrapped the big ones in newspaper. The Casone family lives on Mott at the corner of Canal Street, left-hand side. There's a high tenement there. There's 2 flights up. Bring these to them, okay? Yes, sir. He handed me 3 oranges. Valencia's, juicy. See you tomorrow. Yes, sir. I put an orange in each pocket and kept the third in my hand. Sure enough, Gaetano was by my side within a half block, and his eyes went immediately to the orange in my hand. The ship's gone, I said. I know. It left last night. I knew he'd know. I'm a mook. I took a walk way up by this huge railway station. Grand Central Depot? You saw Grand Central Depot? What's it like? It's huge. And then I went to a giant park with ponds and people on boats. Central Park. I can't believe you went all the way to Central Park. Did you see the swans? Did you play in the fountain? And by the time I got back here, it was night. I'm the biggest mook there is. You're not a mook, said Gaetano. You don't have to be nice to me, I said. I'm going to give you this orange anyway. You earned it by finding out how to get me on the Bolivia, whether I ruined everything or not. I couldn't get you on that ship. The security is tight. Everyone told me it's impossible. The only way on that ship is with a ticket. So it doesn't matter whether you were late last night or not. Keep the orange. It's for you. I handed it to him. He tried to hand it back. Eat it, I said. We're friends. Friends? He tossed the orange from hand to hand. This is just because we're friends. I smiled. Well, it's for helping me go get on the next ship, too. Oh, look, said Gaetano softly. There's something else. What? Maybe with a lot of bribing you could have gotten that ship without a ticket. You could have gotten on that ship without a ticket, or if not that ship, another one. I don't know. It's not likely. What do you mean it's not likely? Another ship will be different, I said. They can't all be so hard. I don't know, Dom. Maybe bribing would work. Only what? The guy I talked to said you needed documents to get on a ship, any ship, because if you get caught, the ship members get in trouble. And the penalty for letting someone sneak on is worse if the stowaway doesn't have documents. I practically laughed in relief. I've got documents. No, you don't. I reached into my pocket, but the folded papers the translator on Ellis Island had given me were gone. I stopped and stared at Gaetano. He looked down. His temples pulsed. You knew they were gone. You stole them. Don't talk so loud, Gaetano took me by my arm. I pulled free. Give them back! I can't. Give them back, I shouted. I sold them. Then just go unsell them right now. Be quiet, will you? Gaetano looked around, then took a step toward me. I can't, he said in a loud whisper. I'd sold them Saturday. I tried to get them back yesterday, but the guy had already sold them to someone else. No, that's impossible. Gaetano bounced the orange against his chest and stared at the ground. I couldn't believe what an idiot I was. Here, I'd been worried about guarding my shoes when those papers were so much more important, and I hadn't even checked on them since Friday night. If I had checked on Saturday, I would have guessed that Gaetano had taken them. I could have gone to him and made him get them back before the other guy sold them. What a brainless mook. I hadn't even noticed that they were gone when I washed off in the park, or when I put the oranges in my pocket. I should have. I should have. I stamped my feet and turned in a circle. Now I couldn't get on any ship, ever. You're a thief! You're a dirty thief after all! I ran along the sidewalk, clutching the packages with potatoes. Gaetano ran beside me. So, if you recall in the last chapter, I asked, do you trust Gaetano as a character? And we go back, he had originally tricked Dom with the dirty ice cream, letting Dom stuff his face too much with ice cream that made him sick. But then in the next chapter, he kind of he helps him get out of a jam when somebody at the wharf, a dock worker, calls the police over for Dom. He comes over and gets Dom out of there, gets him to the church, gets him some food. So it was kind of like at this point, Gaetano has helped Dom, but he's also tricked Dom. Do you trust him? Well, now we find out he stole the documents that Dom got on Ellis Island and sold them. Gaetano ran beside me. I wanted to hurl the potatoes at him, knock him into the street. Maybe a carriage would run him over. I turned and swung the package hard. Gaetano pinned me against a wall. Help! I screamed. Thief! Shut up a second. He panted in my face. Look, I thought you were some rich kid from the Bronx. I didn't even know what the papers were. Not till the guy who bought them told me. I'd never seen documents before. They're hard to come by. I didn't know you were alone. I wouldn't have done it otherwise. I swear. Thief! We weren't friends yet. We aren't friends. Yes, we are, said Gaetano. You don't know what a friend is. Gaetano jerked his head back as though I'd punched him. He put the orange in my free hand. I didn't have to tell you, he said. I didn't have to say anything about the documents. You'd have thought you'd lost them in that barrel you sleep in every night. He turned and walked off. I wanted to throw the orange at his head. He couldn't make me feel sorry for what I'd said just because he'd told the truth, and because he knew where I slept, and he hadn't stolen my shoes. He was the one who had done something rotten, not me, and I was the one who was stuck here. Give me the money you got from selling them, I called. Gaetano stopped and stood there, his back to me. He had no choice but to catch up. I had no choice but to catch up. I spent it, he turned to face me, on a steak lunch. So I'm stuck here now. I'm stuck here, and it's your fault. Gaetano spread his hands, palms up. His eyes were solemn. I'll let people know I want documents. Maybe someone will sell me some soon. They're hard to come by, I said. Guess who told me? Gaetano's temples pulsed. I'm your friend. I'll never do anything bad to you again. What was left for him to do to me? Nothing would seem bad in comparison. All at once, I was too tired to argue. He fell into step beside me. Look! I dragged my feet. I wasn't even hungry anymore. He cleared his throat. I'm sorry, Dom. His apology caught me. I didn't want it to. I wanted to hate him. It wasn't fair what he had done. But what was? Neapolitano boys didn't apologize. That sorry cost Gaetano. He wanted my friendship a lot. How come? What was his story anyway? The other day he said he'd stayed alone, but he told me not to ask where he slept. And later, when I wondered if he had a mother, he told me never to ask about his family. He'd said it as though it was a sacred rule. Don't ask. How did he get here? What happened to his parents? Why didn't he have a padrone, at least? Don't ask, don't ask. I stopped and looked around. I was either with Gaetano or totally alone. Do you really think you could buy more documents? I can try, said Gaetano. It probably cost a lot. At least he was telling the truth now. I tossed him the orange. He caught it. We walked up the street in silence. So would you take Gaetano's apology and friendship back? Let's see. We walked up the street in silence. When we got to the corner of Mott, Gaetano asked, "Where are you going? I hate this street." "Then don't come. I didn't ask you to." "Wherever you're going, I'm going," said Gaetano. "You're only 9. How'd you find that out? From my documents? Don't do me any favors. I'm fine on my own." "Then I'm coming because we're friends." "Suit yourself," I said. I turned onto Mott Street. "You shouldn't go here," said Gaetano. "The Chinese have been moving in." "What's wrong with the Chinese?" "They're tricky. You should see. They get jobs all over the place rolling cigars. I've heard they make as much as $25 a week. An Italian laborer gets $1 a day, the lowest of anyone." "What do you mean, the lowest of anyone?" "Whites get $1.25 a day. Negroes get $1.15 a day. Italians get $1. For the same work?" "Yeah." "What did the Chinese get for a day's labor?" "No one hires them for day work. They're too skinny, but Italians are strong and still get paid bad. And if there's any difference in the types of pay in the types of jobs, Italians are allowed only at the worst ones. They can't collect the piles of garbage. They can only shovel it off barges into the ocean. So you're jealous of the Chinese?" "I'm not jealous," said Gaetano. "That's ridiculous. You should hear the Chinese talk English. They're horrible. Everyone makes fun of them." "Yeah, you're jealous," I said. "Here we are." We went into the tenement up 2 flights. There were 3 doors. "Which one do I knock on?" "Who are you looking for?" "The Casson family?" A little girl was coming down the stairs. She pointed. "At the front." "I could have told you," said Gaetano. "They hang out the window at night and watch the action on Canal Street." "I told you. I know all of 5 Points." I knocked. The door opened. A woman with puffy lips and white hair pulled back tight into a bun looked at us in a daze. A young man gently moved her aside. He glared. "What do you want?" His breath was rancid. I handed him the potatoes. Grandinetti told me to bring you these." The old woman took the package from the man. "I'll make potato and fried egg sandwiches for breakfast," she said. "Your favorite." The man said thanks and shut the door. We went downstairs, the smell of potatoes sizzling in oil already wafted past our noses, and rosemary, and pepper. It was heavenly. Gaetano rolled that orange in his hand. I bet he hadn't had any breakfast either. But he'd had a steak lunch 2 days before, on me. Still, hunger came every day. "Go ahead and eat the orange," I said. "I've got 2 more, one for me and one for Tin Pan Alley. I'm going to the corner where he works." I looked at him with a dare in my eyes. "Come if you want." "Nah, I'll see you later." "What about all that stuff you said before? All that stuff about coming because you're my friend?" "You know the way," said Gaetano. "Besides, I don't like that mook." "You're the mook. You know that, Gaetano?" "Hey, I said I was sorry about the documents." "That's not what I'm talking about. You speak every dialect of Italian, and then you're afraid of English? So you live your whole life in just these few blocks. I've seen more of this city than you have. What a stupid way to live. You're the biggest rabbit I've ever seen." "I'm no rabbit. I'm not afraid of nothing." You're afraid to go you're afraid to go with me to see Tin Pan Alley." "No, I'm not." "Prove it." We walked fast all the way to Tin Pan Alley's corner, eating our oranges. "Hey," I said, and handed Tin Pan Alley the orange. "What's this?" he said. "What do you think?" I said. "Eat it." "Are you kidding?" "I can't believe it's so hard to give away oranges. What's with you two?" "Don't throw me in the same category as this mook," said Gaetano. "I had a reason for not taking mine. He's just dumb." "I have a reason," said Tin Pan Alley. "If this is really mine, I'm selling it. This is Wall Street. The people who work down here don't know the value of money. They get big salaries. I can get 5 cents for this orange. You don't believe me, but it's true. The big guys spend as much as 50 cents for a sandwich here, and it's small." "50 cents? That's a fortune," said Gaetano. "How do you know?" "I heard someone say it." "In English?" asked Gaetano. "Maybe you didn't understand right." Tin Pan Alley smirked. "I understood." "It's not your orange," I said. "It's not your orange," I said. I took it back. Tin Pan Alley didn't look surprised. "So what?" he said, and turned his back to me. He wasn't going to fight. I wanted to shake him. I knew how to fight back better than him when I was 5 years old. I peeled the orange and broke it into sections. Then I walked around to the front of him. "You can't sell it now, so you might as well eat it." That was dumb, said Tin Pan Alley, but even as he spoke, his hand reached out. He put an orange section in his mouth, his eyelids half closed as he chewed. So far that day, I'd eaten only rock candy and one orange. I couldn't risk looking at the orange sections in my hand, or I might gobble them up. Tin Pan Alley smiled. Now and then dumb makes sense. He ate another section. 5 cents lost. But he ate another and another. 5 cents is nothing compared to 50, I said. 50? Tin Pan Alley's eyes sharpened. His cheeks pinched as though he was sure I was about to pull a fast one on him. You're going to be eating a lot of oranges from now on. I put the rest of the orange in his hand. What are you talking about? I've got an idea. And it was a beauty, all right. I could hear Mama in my head telling me to be my own boss. Come on, Gaetano, hurry. Gaetano had been watching me this whole time as though he couldn't figure me out, but now he flinched to attention. Why? I was already racing toward 5 points. Can you get your hands on some clean paper? What for? That brown paper the ice cream man uses? That would do. Yeah, I can get some. What for? And can you get a knife? A knife? Whoa. Tell me what for, and I don't want any part. Forget the knife. I bet Grand and Eddie has a knife I can use. Just get the paper. By this time, we were at the corner of Park Street. Gaetano grabbed my arm. What's going on? I'm going to make money, Gaetano. And Tin Pan Alley is going to help me. You can be part of it unless you're too much of a rabbit. You think I'm stupid enough to do something just because you call me names, he said. I do what I want to do, and I don't want to hurt anyone. No knives. We won't hurt a soul. I'm going to earn enough money for a ticket home and new documents. You want something? That's for sure. You're always hungry, except when you're eating steak. So, are you in? All I have to do is get brown paper? Yeah, 4 big pieces. What about the knife? He said. Just get the paper and meet me at Grand and Eddie's. Where? The produce store. And if I'm not there, wait for me, because I'll be coming. I ran to Grand and Eddie's. He was standing behind the weighing counter reading the paper. Please, I said. Grand and Eddie looked over the edge of the paper at me. Please what? The words burst out of me. I need to borrow 25 cents, only for a couple of hours. I'm not a bank. He clapped his hands together in front of his chest as though he was praying and shook them at me. Small as you are, you're a good worker. You keep it up, and I'll be square with you, but I'm no chump. Here, I took off my shoes. You can keep them if I don't pay you back at the end of the day. Grand and Eddie frowned. Your folks will be angry if you come home without your shoes. I'll have my shoes at the end of the day, and you'll have your 25 cents. Please. I don't want to face your angry father. I don't have a father. Grand and Eddie blinked. Your shoes are worth more than 25 cents, but 25 cents is all I'll lend you. That's all I'm asking for. All right. And do you have a knife I can use? What's this all about? I'm just going to cut a sandwich with it. Bring the sandwich in here, he said. I'll cut it. I took the 25 cents and ran barefoot to Luigi Pirano's store on Park Street. I bought a long sandwich stuffed with salami and provolone and hot peppers and onions and tomatoes and lettuce. Nodding my head yes to everything he offered. All right, this is my kind of sandwich. Jam-packed. At Grand and Eddie's, Gaetano was waiting with the brown paper. Grand and Eddie shook his head. Grand and Eddie shook his head. Exactly how do you expect to get your shoes back? I'll bring you money, I swear. Just cut the sandwich into 4 equal sections. Please. His shoes for a picnic, said Grand and Eddie under his breath as he cut the sandwich. Gaetano and I wrapped the 4 pieces. Then he ran back to Wall Street. We didn't have to talk. Gaetano knew what was up. Here, I held out the cut sandwich to Tin Pan Alley. Sell them, 50 cents. Sandwiches? He looked around. I'm not a vendor. I just make music. You were going to sell the orange, said Gaetano. 1 orange, that's easy, but I can't sell 4 sandwiches. Who would buy them from me? People have to trust food vendors. Try, I said. One side of Tin Pan Alley's mouth rose nervously. He held out a sandwich to a passing man. Sandwich? He said in English. The man looked at the sandwich. Then he looked at me, standing behind Tin Pan Alley with 3 more sandwiches. I smiled at him and tried to look trustworthy. He looked at Gaetano. Gaetano smiled at him. He said something in English to Tin Pan Alley. Chicken, said Tin Pan Alley in English. The man said something else in English. Then he handed Tin Pan Alley a coin, took the sandwich, and walked away. A quarter, said Gaetano. How much is a quarter worth? I asked. 25 cents. There you go. He's already made his money back for Grandinetti. That's only half of 50, I pointed at Tin Pan Alley. You said they'd pay 50 cents for a sandwich. So what, said Tin Pan Alley. I didn't tell the guy the price. That's just what he gave me. Don't get mad. Mad, Grandinetti, or Gaetano, excuse me. Mad, Gaetano grinned. You're both mooks. A quarter. That's crazy, man. That crazy man just paid a whole quarter for a sandwich. Tin Pan Alley, you were right. The people here have no sense of the value of money. They'll pay anything. And we've still got 3 more sandwiches to sell. He slapped Tin Pan Alley on the back. It worked. Dom's crazy plan worked. It did. It worked. Gaetano saw things right. I grinned at Tin Pan Alley too. What does chicken mean? It's the English word for pollo. He asked what it was he asked what was in the sandwich. But there's no chicken in the sandwich, I said. It was the only English word for meat I could think of. I hope the guy likes salami. All right. Way to sell that. If you're wondering, by the way, the prices, if you're like a penny and a quarter, that money is nothing. Inflation means that over time, the value of things goes up. Of course, what people earn has also increased. So there was a time where you have to factor for that. A quarter was like a few bucks. So just keep that in mind. If you're a student, if you're younger and you're like, why are they paying only cents for stuff that costs dollars now? That's why things used to cost cheaper, though earning was also less. And so on and on it goes. Prices increase, earnings increase. All right. I hope you enjoyed that. I sure did. I love the dialogue. I love reading in those characters. The character of Grandinetti, if you've ever seen the show Hey Arnold, there's I think reruns on Hulu now. It's an old Nickelodeon show. You can ask older relatives. But Hey Arnold, there used to be, I think, a butcher was the character, and that's in my mind the character I see with Grandinetti, and so that's kind of the voice I take on there. So I really enjoy reading in these characters. I love just the back and forth between Tin Pan Alley, Dom, Gaetano, and Grandinetti. One of my favorite chapters, and on top of that, it includes a delicious sounding sandwich. So what's not to like? I hope you're enjoying. That was, what was that, chapter 14? Yep, chapter 14, sandwiches. All right, the plan here is to make enough to get the documents back, or get some documents back, and hopefully get a ticket back to Napoli. Do you think Dom's plan here is going to work? If so, what's it going to take? How long is it going to take? How many sandwiches are they going to have to sell? Stay tuned. Let's find out. Hope you're enjoying. Keep reading. Keep following. Peace.